My name is Allie Carls. I'm the director here at the Deke Slayton Memorial Space and Bicycle Museum. And we've got a fascinating subject history. The museum recently turned 20 years old. This was our 20th anniversary this June. And the museum started out in 1999. And it's a very unique subject matter because Sparta is the bicycling capital of America with the very first Rails to Trails program in the country. So they wanted to honor this bicycling tradition. But then Deke Slayton, who was one of America's first ever astronauts, was also from Sparta. And so they wanted to honor this as well. And that's where the idea of having a bike and space museum came from. And over the years, it's really progressed. And so we start with bikes because of the bicycling capital tradition. We go on to planes. There's a very strong aviation interest in Monroe County. And Deke Slayton himself was a pilot in World War II and the Korean War before he became an astronaut. And then, of course, we go on into space, celebrating Deke Slayton and all of his accomplishments. So we're a progression of transportation here at the museum, starting with bikes, going on to planes, and then into space. So the location, we are currently sitting in an old 1923 historic Masonic temple. And so one thing you'll find with historic buildings, about 95% of the building is original to what you would have found if you came as a Mason. And so, this historic building just seems like a great fit for a museum, and it has been. So Deke Slayton is a Sparta native. He was born here in Sparta, graduated from Sparta High School, and really interesting individual. Pearl Harbor happened his senior year in high school, and that prompted him, like many other young men around the nation, to enlist in World War II. And he flew over 50 combat missions in Europe during World War II, and then also fought in the Korean War. After that, he was recruited to be an astronaut. They originally started out with a pool of hundreds and hundreds of applicants, and each time the list was narrowed down and cut down and narrowed down again, he always made the cut. And so he became one of the first 7, and that group of first astronauts was called the Mercury 7. And he was actually slated to be the first American to orbit the Earth. He was supposed to have John Glenn's mission, but then they found that he had a very slight heart palpitation, and this actually took him off of active flight duty. But he was a really good team player, and he moved to the background, and he became head of the Astronaut Activities Office. And so it was up to him to choose that new class of astronauts, those that would go to the moon. And so he chose all of those astronauts that went on the Apollo missions. He chose the right men for the right place, for the right team, and was just an incredibly well-respected astronaut, perhaps even the most respected of all the astronauts. And he really led that generation of Apollo astronauts who made it to the moon. And so when Deke Slayton was on the Apollo-Soyuz mission in '75, the President of the United States actually called him and said, if you had one piece of advice for school children, what would it be? And he said, decide what you want to do and never give up until you've done it. And that is a story we love sharing here at the museum, the idea of perseverance in the face of hardship. And so he's left a wonderful legacy for us in Sparta to celebrate and for us to share with future generations as well. So Deke Slayton passed away in the early 90s, and he wasn't very old. I think he was just around 70 when he passed, and unfortunately he had brain cancer. And what they found actually is a lot of those early astronauts, they seem to have passed away from an abnormal amount of cancers, and they think that has something to do with the radiation in space. And so that's even a concern among astronauts today. So he had passed before the museum was formed. However, his widow, Bobby Slayton, was very involved with the museum, and she was actually instrumental in helping us get the real piece of moon rock here at the museum. So when we received the Ambassador of Exploration Award, which includes that moon rock, that was something that his widow had made sure that we received. The effort to make this museum, to create it, to bring it to Sparta, to see it to fruition, was actually a group of community folks. It was a group of individuals from the Monroe County Historical Society who worked very hard to fundraise to get this building and establish the museum. So it really was kind of a grassroots community effort to get this museum formed, and it's garnered, really great community support over the last 20 years, which is what has made this so successful.